them have an upper-level skill set.
The best way to get the most out of Shedeur Sanders is telling him you will be the starter.
Who will be QB1 in Cleveland? I think it's going to be Deshaun Watson. I think Deshaun Watson is going to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns come Game 1 next year. We're on Sportsmanlike, presented by Progressive Insurance, along with Michelle Smolin, David Dennis Jr. in for Chris Canty today. Evan Cohen with you. Andrew Berry, Browns general manager, at the Combine yesterday in Indy, was asked who is QB1 right now in Cleveland, and here is what he had to say.
We don't have to make that decision anytime soon. I think any player that we have in that room, we would expect to, to compete, to earn a role. Those two would be no different.
Those two, Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. What's interesting, by the way, is what happened to Dylan Gabriel?
Just not in the mix?
I mean, he was drafted ahead of Sanders. Mm-hmm. It was, well, you got to give him a shot first because he was drafted ahead of. So those two, there's a third guy there who was drafted ahead of Sanders. Now, Sanders performed better, I believe, than Gabriel. But here is my question for you guys. I understand the dead cap hit. I understand all of this stuff. We've talked about this ad nauseum with the Broncos and their move with Russell Wilson. Right? We've talked about this with the Miami Dolphins and the possibility of their move of taking that big one-year hit in and around Tua. Why is Watson still there if they're not going to actually give him a shot to play then?
Well, they owe him $46 million in salary next season, and he has an $80.7 million cap hit in 2026, which is the largest in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. His dead cap is 131, which is obviously the most absurd thing of all time. Right? But if you could do it over the course of 2 years where you would take an $80 million cap hit this year and a $50 million cap hit next year. Utterly absurd. But, David, if you have a new head coach and you are trying to create a new culture, a new team, a new system, all of this stuff, having Watson around does not seem like it is going to be something that you're going to want to have to answer questions about. I'm not even here to weigh in on whether or not he's a good quarterback, because the answer to that is no, he hasn't been a good quarterback in God knows how long. I'm not here to weigh in on the off-the-field stuff. That's been found out. That's been investigated. We know what's going on there. Why is he still there if they're not going to give him a chance to play? I think he's going to be the starting quarterback this year.
If Deshaun Watson is the starting quarterback for the Browns or any team, it's an indictment of everybody involved in the situation. For all the reasons you mentioned, on the field and off the field. The guy is not good enough to be putting up with all this stuff. Like there's really no level of good enough that I think you should be able to have to allow you to still be playing football. But this dude is not good at football. And to have him as a starting quarterback week 1 for a team that had 4 quarterbacks on your roster that had your choice of picks last season, and this is where you are. You have failed miserably as an organization if this is what it is. It is absolutely wild to me to think that Deshaun Watson could be starting at any point on any team in the NFL, and to be starting week 1 for the Browns is absurd, especially when you're trying to start off fresh. There's no reason to do this.
Exactly. And so that's why it leads me to believe that he could be and is going to be the starting quarterback. Todd Monken is the Browns head coach, and he was asked whether or not they have a starting quarterback and whether or not it is an open competition in Cleveland. Here is Todd Monken from the Combine this week.
I think it's an open competition. I mean, I don't know why it wouldn't be an open competition. And I don't mean that saying it harshly, but I don't think there's enough on film over the last couple of years, one way or the other, to say, boy, we have a starter quarterback yet, whether internally or externally.
See, here's the difference between what they're doing and what Miami and Arizona are doing. Miami has said everything's on the table. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, David, you have presented, people can go back on the podcast yesterday and listen. You have presented if everything's on the table, maybe your best chance at losing without taking a massive cap hit is to actually play Tua. Okay, now that's more of like a punishment, right? Like you're going to have to be the quarterback that deals with this, right? Uh-huh. Arizona seems pretty clear that they are going to work in partnership, their attempt to work in partnership with Kyler, and now there's a debate as to who has spoken to who, whatever. It doesn't seem like that's going to be anything other than where can we get you? What value can we get? Where can you get value? Let's just end this peacefully, ultimately. This one is totally different because they keep going back to open competition. I haven't heard Arizona say open competition between Jacoby Brissett and Kyler Murray. I haven't heard Miami say open competition between Tua and Quinn Ewers. This one is open competition. I am telling you, as we sit here today on February 26th, I believe the opening day starter for the Cleveland Browns is going to be Deshaun Watson.
Or is this just a mechanism to push Shedeur Sanders and try to get the best out of him? Because Deshaun Watson, if they did not give him this epically, historically bad contract,
no doubt,
he would not be there because of the off-field stuff and because he has not been good at football in 6 years.
You're right.
6 years is the last time we saw Deshaun Watson be even decent at football. If they did not have the financial handcuffs that they have, that they willingly put on themselves with this quarterback, he would not be in the mix. But maybe they're using him as a mechanism to say, okay, we're going to have competition because we want to push Shedeur Sanders. You know what Deshaun Watson is. I have no thoughts that he's going to go out there and be any different than we've seen out of him during his time with the Cleveland Browns, whether it's because of injury or poor play. Now, with Shedeur Sanders, you saw some signs of things last year.
Yes, definitely.
There is definitely an upside there. You're hoping that he can actually take this job and run with it. You're praying that he's the solution to your problems. And maybe by having him in the building, you think that he responds well to competition. We know what happened with Dylan Gabriel last year. And you said what happened to Dylan Gabriel. I pulled up the quote. Andrew Berry said he may be forgotten externally, but he's not forgotten to us. So they're still talking about him in the mix a little bit. But maybe they're thinking that they don't want to just hand it to Shedeur, say you're going to be QB1. They want him to compete for it. They want him to earn it. But ultimately, that's their long-term plan.
But here's the thing. Here's how I look at it. Everything you're saying is fair. Shedeur Sanders has proven in this short period of time that in 2026, he's a top 64 QB in the league. And what I mean by that is whether it's with Cleveland or somewhere else, he's either first or second string somewhere else. Somewhere in the league. He's either a QB1 or a QB2, which, by the way, as a fifth-round pick 1 year in, let's give this young man credit to prove that you deserve to be a top 64, meaning QB1 or QB2, and one of the 32 is impressive. Dylan Gabriel did not do that. So when you're talking open competition, I don't see the math, David, for them to bring in another quarterback unless they're going to voluntarily cut their third-round pick from a year ago because they're telling us they're not getting rid of Watson because you should have probably done it by now and dealt with whatever the cap hit was to clean it out. He's still there. When we're asking the question, do the Browns at QB1 on the roster, I don't know how we all don't come to the conclusion that they're pushing for it to be Watson.
One of the Browns' fatal flaws, the other one besides the Watson thing, is not understanding who Shedeur Sanders is on their roster. And they're trying to treat Shedeur Sanders like a regular quarterback when he is, in terms of popularity, Shedeur Sanders is the closest thing we've got to Tim Tebow in the NFL. And the fact that there's so much popularity, there's so much hoopla about him that you just cannot sit this dude on the bench unless you have somebody who is a verifiable, better starting level quarterback. And there's no way that you're going to convince anybody that Deshaun Watson is that. Let me explain how much of a fandom that Shedeur Sanders has. I'm in Atlanta. When Stefanski got announced he's coming to Atlanta, there was a legitimate outrage from everybody I talked to in the city. Because regardless of how great Stefanski is and all of his accolades, everybody pointed to the fact that they felt like he treated Shedeur Sanders wrong. That is what people think about when they think about – that's how much of a fan base and a love for Shedeur Sanders that people have, that they are talking about him in that way as if this dude deserves – has earned this spot to be an undeniable level 1 QB1 for the Browns or for any team, which I don't think he has, but that's just the level of excitement that there is and attention that somebody like Shedeur Sanders gets. So the Browns just treating him like a regular battle for second string or QB1, that's just not realistic for this team. They got to understand the level of star power that they have on that roster with him.
Speaking of star power, could we see a star QB on the move this offseason? Couple of notes tell us something here over the last couple of days. One GM gave us a big indication as to whether or not we are going to see a star QB on the move. We'll get to that next. We're on Sportsmanlike, presented by Progressive Insurance.
This week is NFL Combine Week.
We're there in the room where it happens.
All the news from Indy